It's time for hand number 2 of Aussie Millions week. This one is pretty fun as well. There's going to be a big hand made in this hand.
Oh, yeah.
And it's at the final table of the Aussie Millions, so things are getting serious.
To be clear, $1.6 million is out there for first place, so it's really worth winning.
Right. This was suggested to us on Twitter by Max Sawyer, and that's a great way to suggest hands for us, isn't it?
Indeed it is. You got to tweet it at us and include a YouTube link.
Hey, one of the players in this hand is going to be in Aussie Millions week hand number 3 as well.
That's right, so pay attention.
Pay attention. We're going to break this hand down as we go, so get ready for some analysis.
Chat says definitely B. Action here on Ben Heath from the United Kingdom. Successful poker player, $1 million in live cashes. He actually just won a tournament in the Bahamas for $140,000 earlier this month. Ooh, and right now he's run into a pretty big hand. The honeys for Vijayaram. Looks like he is chopping out a raise. And here it comes. Oh, sorry, I thought it was coming. There it goes. We are going to see a re-raise here. Looks like about 320,000 maybe. All right, pretty small re-raise here. Only 200,000 more. Ain't no way Heath is going to just fold 2 10s pre-flop here. My guess is we're going to see a flop, and that is what's going to happen. And hey, just like that, this is a 700,000 chip pot. There's more chips in this pot than Fedor has in his stack. Oh, hi there, man. Think about you make the final table of the main event. Really, the first hand you play, call a re-raise, flop quads. Yeah, no big deal. No big deal. And this might get Vijayaram in some trouble. Hard to put your opponent on too many 10s here. Through to the golds. Now Vijayaram could still make running quads, so he's not dead. There is a chance. And that looks like a 500,000 chips. If Vijayaram can get away from this hand without doubling up Heath, I think that would be a victory. And Heath's going to check back and be like, do I really have quads? Oh, yep, I sure do. Yep, 2 pair, 10s and 10s. And now how is Heath going to play it here? I mean, it seems like a pretty good time to slow play and just call.
That is what we call, in the parlance, a quality flop.
A quality flop.
A good flop.
Is that if you go to the streets, you start playing poker with the kids, they're like, yo, that's a quality flop.
They say, that's nice.
You know, we're pretty hip with it. You know how it is.
Clearly.
But let's talk about poker maybe a little bit.
Fine.
Obviously, this is an incredible flop for Heath. We'll talk about his decision in a bit. Vijayaram has a slightly interesting spot whether or not to check, but I think betting makes tons of sense here.
I mean, we 3-bet pre. It's not that often that Heath has a 10 in his hand for reals.
Yeah.
Turns out he has 2, but
he has 2
that's unlucky. I think we just want to bet with queens here. And then the question is, what are our plans for the rest of this hand now that we've bet?
Right. When we bet, we can get value from all of the pocket pairs. Of course, Heath has more 10s in his range than Vijayaram has in his, but we can't be too overly worried about that.
Yeah.
We're playing for value right now. So what is our plan? What happens if Heath check raises? That's one question we have to ask ourselves.
It seems to me we would just absolutely have to call a check raise and reevaluate on the turn. Probably planning to call a lot of turn bets too, though.
Yeah, it just turns into a bit of a poopy spot, as we like to say here on the breakdown.
We do say that a lot.
That's another thing the kids are saying these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably a call, but also not fun.
Right.
The much more likely scenario than getting check raised, though, is getting called. So what is our plan when we get called as Vajayram? What is the future going to hold for us?
I would think our plan would be to check a lot of turns and then bet a lot of rivers or call a lot of rivers. So we can control this a little bit. We got a major ICM spot here. We don't have to put a cajillion chips in with what looks like a very pretty hand, but may fold out almost all the worst ones if we bet on the turn.
It really might. It's really hard to get 3 streets of value on a paired board, especially when the pair is relatively high, like a 10, with an overpair. We saw Valentin Vorniku try to do that at the World Series.
It did not work out.
That did not work out well, and he, in fact, had queens.
Yeah, and it was against 2 10s on the board.
So Vajayram has a pretty clear bet, and the future decisions will be based on Heath's actions, but we're going to try to get a little more value. Of course, there's no value to be had, because Heath has quads. And it might look like a straightforward call. We don't want to lose our opponent, but I think we should dig a little deeper and ask, should Heath be calling or should he be raising?
I think it's great. I think he should not fold.
Okay,
Folding is a bad move. But I think actually a raise is kind of great here. Even though you do lose some hands that maybe would feel like they have to barrel again. I'm not sure if Ace-King's really going to keep barreling, but it might. But when we have a 3-better and we flop so strong in a spot where if we were to check raise, it doesn't feel super believable. I kind of like giving the guy a chance to stack off with his overpair.
Right. However, like we just said, Vajayram probably wouldn't if he's a good player. That's an issue. But if we do check raise, like Jonathan said, Vajayram usually has to call at least once. So we've inflated the pot with the hand that we know is going to be good by the end. This is the way to double up if we check raise.
The thing to ask yourself is, what is your image here? And I don't know what Heath's image is, because we haven't watched the whole live stream. We just watched these singular hands that you guys send in to us on Twitter. So if Heath has a very tight image, check raising may not be such a great idea.
No.
And not that Vajayram would put him on quads, but 110 is enough, right?
Yes.
Trips is good enough to beat pretty much everything he'd have there. So then in that case, if it's that tight, then maybe you should check call. But if you have any kind of a loosey-goosey image, this is a great board to check raise, even though it's quads.
It's hard to pull it off, though, because when you flop quads, and I know those of you who have flop quads know how rare it is. It's really painful when you put in an aggressive action and the guy just folds, and you're like, what the hell, man? Come on.
You almost never see anyone on the flop be super aggressive with quads. Benny Spindler is a notable exception where he flopped quad jacks and just, I think he 5-bet all in on the flop because he is the man. But his image is also that of a crazy person.
Right. So it's fair for Heath to call. It would have been a little bit fun to see what happened if he check raised, but calling makes sense too. At least he didn't fold.
Vajayram does look a little curious, and that king may save him from losing too much here. Heath checks. That king will definitely, or at least I believe that king will potentially slow down the action here. Indeed it does go check, check. My guess is that Heath is going to bet here on the river. A pretty healthy bet is my guess. Heath bets 800, 900,000, hoping that Vajayram's got ace-king or queens or jacks. And you can see Ben looks very calm. Not doing any kind of, he looks just like he always does. Which is important if you're going to play poker. Looks like he has decided it's time to bet. Now the question is, how much is he going to bet? That looks like 555,000. Pretty big pot here, the biggest pot of our final table. 585 here for Mr. Heath. And now if you're Vajayram, can you possibly fold here? I mean, I think the answer is no. Spoiler alert. The pot is just too big. That being said, what kind of hands would Heath play this way that queens beat? Would Heath really bet a hand like jacks or nines? Probably not. So you really only beat some bluffs. Like what, ace jack, ace queen, queen jack suited? Tough to lay this down though. I certainly wouldn't fault him for a call here. This would be a great laydown if you can somehow make it. He rechecks his cards. No problem taking your time here when we're playing for $1.6 million. This is his first cash ever in a live tournament. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. That is a great laydown.
That is a cool fold by Vajiram, and it was right in the moment, especially considering that it's a very small size on the river. But we have to ask ourselves, is it theoretically correct to fold here?
And what Grant means by that is, if Vajiram were to play this 1,000 times, he's got queens, he 3-bet, this was the action on this board, and then the player bets on the river. If he folds, is it more profitable or less profitable to fold or call?
I think it's more profitable, and I'm going to tell you why right now.
You mean to fold?
Yes.
Good.
To fold is more profitable.
To be clear.
Yes, to be clear. So, we get to the river as Vajiram, and we have queens. The king was not a good turn card.
No.
And it made sense to check on the turn.
Yes.
We were probably going to check most of the turn cards that came.
Not a queen, but everything else.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Yeah,
give or take.
Probably, but we might check the queen sometimes. That's not important.
Okay.
That doesn't matter. So we're on the river as Vajiram, and Heath bets. So the first question we have to ask ourselves is, are there any bluffs?
It's hard to come up with bluffs on this board. Remember the flop? Look at that flop.
It's bone dry.
It's like the Sahara.
Yes.
I'm so thirsty. It's like that.
I don't know what that is.
An old man in the Sahara.
Okay.
Clearly.
It's an old man in the Sahara.
100%.
That's what the 10-10-4 flop should be called. 10-10-4 rainbow. The
old man in the Sahara.
All right.
It is from now on.
We just coined something. That's pretty great.
You're welcome.
So because of that, we can't expect any draws that missed in Heath's range.
Right.
We don't think on a paired board at the final table of the Aussie Millions, he's going to call with 2 back doors or something. It seems really unlikely.
Especially out of position after against the 3-better with an inflated pot. It seems like probably very unlikely, right?
So just because of the flop action alone, we can't really think of any bluffs in Heath's range, so we can eliminate bluffs.
I mean, I think so, right?
I think
What's
we
he
can.
supposed to have? It's hard for him to have ace-queen. We block a lot of that.
Right.
Even. Yeah.
I mean, what is he even targeting if he's bluffing?
I don't know.
Ace queen specifically.
All
if
right,
he has 8-9 or something, it doesn't.
We can pretty much eliminate bluffs.
We can pretty much eliminate bluffs. So the next question we have to ask is, does Heath have any value that queens are beating?
Right. And so what that real question is underneath that, the specific is, can he be value betting jacks here?
Right, because that is 1 pip down from queens.
Right.
I don't think he should be value betting jacks here.
It seems hard to get good value because if we value bet jacks, do we think 9s are going to call?
Which is 1 pip down from jacks.
Right. And so if 9s aren't going to call, we shouldn't be value betting jacks, right?
So I don't think 9s are going to call. So there's that, along with the fact that Vajiram has a lot more kings in his range than Heath has in his range, and we don't expect Vajiram to fold kings on the river, right?
No, if Vajiram has ace-king, which you very reasonably could still check on the turn. It's not crazy at all. It's a 10-10-4 board.
Same reason he checked an overpair, right?
Right, yeah. If he was going to check queens, he could easily check ace-king. He can have that. And by the way, from Vajiram's point of view, that means that he's got better hands he can still call with. Queens actually move to a lower part of his distribution. He can fold some of that.
Right. So Vajiram also has king, queen, and king, jack in his range. He was a 3-better, and he bet the flop. That's different than calling a 3-bet and calling on this bone-dry Sahara Desert flop.
Right.
Which means Heath doesn't have king, queen, or king, jack in his range. He only has one type of king in his range, and that's ace-king that did not 4-bet.
He does have king 10, but we know what you mean.
Yeah, okay, fine. He has king 10.
Gotcha.
Right. So then we're thinking, okay, you can't value bet jacks for these reasons because Vajiram has more kings in his range than Heath has in his. Therefore, what is the value, and is there any value? The answer is yes. There's a lot of value.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of value.
Heath has ace-king in his range, for sure. He might have 4-bet that sometimes, but he certainly would value bet that on the river. And he has all the 10s. He's got to have 9-10 suited here, right?
Absolutely.
He has quad 10s, obviously. That's pretty good. He's got 4s full. He's got 8-10 suited, probably even that low, right?
Absolutely. And once in a blue moon, he can have pocket aces too, which is also good and would bet this for sure.
So there's a ton of value. Can't think of any bluffs, and we can't think of a worse hand that would bet for value. It's a slam dunk fold.
We'd love to hear your comments about this hand in our analysis, and we're going to respond to our favorite comments from you about this video. Just click right up here to see that.
If you want to see Aussie Millions hand number 1 from Aussie Millions Week, which you should have already seen, and if you have, watch it again. If you haven't, watch it now, and then watch it again, and again. Click right up there.
I mean, sure.
Click right up there and do that.
Why not? Why not? Also, if you like this video, give us a like and make sure you subscribe.